Hi everyone, welcome to North Star Knife Reviews. Today I have what I think is kind of an interesting little knife for you. This is an old timer, but it's not a Schrade branded old timer, it's an Ulster branded old timer. Now, at the time, Ulster was part of the Imperial Schrade Corporation, so it's still made by them, but it's branded differently. So let's take a little look at this knife, and let's talk a little bit about the history. Ulster started as a knife company in the 1870s, and they operated as an independent knife company up until about 1941, when Albert Behr and Imperial Knife Company purchased them. Then in 1946, Behr also purchased Schrade and eventually became the Imperial Schrade Corporation. Now, the first Schrade old timer was the 2OT, which came out in 1959. Now, K-Bar had used the name old timer on a knife or two back in the 30s, but didn't continue on with it. So when we think about old timers today, we think about those Schrade old timers. As I said, those first came out in 1959, but in 1960, they came out with this Ulster 58 OT old timer. And as you can see, it's got the Ulster tang stamp. Now, at this time, Ulster was a little more of a budget line for Imperial Schrade than the Schrade knives, so this would have been a little lower price than the Schrade old timers, at least as they continued on through the manufacturing process. As I say, this first came out in 1960, and they stopped making the Ulster brand in about 72. Except I believe they did make a few of them in a special order for Reynolds Tobacco, and I'll talk about that in a second because that relates to this knife. This 58 Old T, first produced in 61. In 1968, or excuse me, produced in 1960. In 1968, Reynolds Tobacco contacted Imperial Schrade to do a promotion. And they ordered these old timer branded Ulsters to be given away if you bought Prince Albert tobacco. You could send in 5 coupons and $2 from Prince Albert, and you could get this. They also did have 2 others, I believe a Scout knife and what was the other one? A Barlow, I believe. So this was by far the most common one, this small stockman. And you could order these. They made them through 1972 when they retired the Ulster brand, and I believe they'd continue to manufacture these for Reynolds for about another year, even though they weren't selling them, because that promotion ended in 73. Okay, and they made a lot of these, but it's kind of interesting. Now, as you can see, the length on this is about 3¼ inches. The blade length, about, on the main blade, about 2½ inches. Cutting edge of just slightly over 2 inches. And as you can see, the tang stamp, Ulster USA and 58 OT. This one is in pretty good shape. A little corrosion on the blade, but that's to be expected at this age. I don't know exactly when this one was made, but probably sometime in the mid to late 60s, maybe into the early 70s. And I don't know if this was one of the ones that was given away with the Prince Albert promotion or if this was one that was sold outside of that. You've got the 2 secondary blades. You've got a little pen blade, which is 1½ inches long with a cutting edge of about 1¼ inches. And you can see no tang stamp on that. And you then have the third blade, the spay blade, a little over 1½ inches and just under 1½ inches on the cutting edge. These do have the nickel silver bolsters, the brass liners, that typical old timer shield. And when you first pick this up, you think, oh, it's a Schrade old timer, until you open it and see it's an Ulster. I kind of like the Ulsters. They are just, to me, sort of interesting as a line. And I'm going to be taking a look at another Ulster knife coming up in an episode soon. That was actually made by Ulster before they became part of Imperial or Imperial Schrade. Hope you found this little look at this knife and a little bit of the history interesting. Thank you very much. Please subscribe. I will catch you next time.